Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we're going to this Yevamos daf Mem Tes. We're going to begin on the top of Mem Tes and off by the Mishnah. So we have a three-way machlokas in the Mishnah of Ezem Mamzer. At what level do we consider a child to be considered to be a Mamzer? So according to the first opinion, which is the most strict, Kol Sher Basar Shehu Beloy Yavai Diver Rabbi Akiva. So Rabbi Akiva says, as Rashi tells us, Kol Korva Shi Belav. Even when it comes to relationship, which is forbidden because it's an Isser Lav, even if there's no punishment of Kares, nonetheless that child will be a Mamzer. Kagon Anusas Aviv. For example, taking the wife of your father, who actually was not your wife, but he coerced and had a child with this woman. So for taking Anusas Aviv, so that is according to Rabbi Yehuda, that holds it's a Lav, based on the words Yigal Knaf of him, which we'll see in the Gemara. So it's possible that you can be even chayev a lav, and for that relationship, you're going to have the product of that child will be a mamzer. Shimon Atzimoini Omer Kol Shachav no Lav Kares B'Dishamayim V'Lach G'Nabar. The law is actually like this. The Mishnah tells us that it's only when it comes to a relationship in which there is a punishment of kares. However, says Rashi, if let's say you would marry the woman you did chalitza with, maybe you decided to do chalitza, and then afterwards you decide to marry afterwards, in which there's an isser of lo yivna oid, you're not allowed to marry her afterwards, so that's a lav. So if you do, it's only a lav in the fact that the child will not be a mamzer. Rabbi Yeshua Omer, third answer, third opinion rather, kol shechayav l'misas beistin. Even the more lenient opinion, rather, is that the only time a child will be a mamzer is if the relationship would constitute a misa of beistin. For example, eishas ish, which is an isser directly, there will be a death penalty if a person has proper witnesses and hasra, etc. Amar Shimon ben Azai, Matzasim Megillas Yuchsin, Birushalayim, I found in this book, V'kaseh ish poini mamzer v'eishas ish, that there was this child that was a mamzer because he came from the eishas ish. L'kaim de Rabbi Yeshua, and that supports Rabbi Yeshua, even though again the Mishnah said that we paskin like Shimon Hatimoini, but nonetheless it's written in Megillas, in this Megillas Yuchsin, that when it comes to eishas ish, which is Chaim Misas based in, that is when the child will be a mamzer. Ishto shemesa, a person's wife who had died, mutar b'chaisa. At that moment, you're now allowed to marry her sister. The only time it's usher to marry a sister is while your wife, even you divorced her, as it says here, is still alive. However, if she died, then you can marry the sister. However, Gersha, you would think, well, maybe once she's divorced, no, but once Umesa, even though you divorced her first, but since she died, Mutar b'chaisa, again, the din is that you're allowed to marry the sister. Nises l'achar, let's say married someone else, Umesa, and then she died, Mutar b'chaisa. So in all these situations, it doesn't matter. It's the fact that she died, you can now marry her sister. Yevimto shemesa, so let's say you have a Yevamot, and she died, Mutar b'chaisa. Cholotzla, let's say you did chalitza to her, umesa, and she died, mutar b'chaisa. Nises la'acher, umesa, mutar b'chaisa. So we see in all these situations, the dinim are the same, and that is that you're mutar to marry the sister because the other woman had died. Now we go back to the beginning of the Mishnah. My time, Rabbi Akiva, why is he so strict that says that even when it comes to a lav, the child will be a mamzer? The pasuk says, that a person shouldn't take the wife of your father, and you shouldn't reveal the cloth of your father. What does that mean? So kanaf shara aviv yigala. This is obviously not just talking about his wife, because that's already mentioned in eishas aviv. So it must be coming to include someone else. So Savar Rabbi Yehuda the Amr ba'anusas aviv v'kas madaber. We're not talking about a situation of having a child through marriage, but rather anusas aviv. It was through wedlock that they were not married, and nonetheless, one who would have relations with her would be a chavi lav. The Havi Lachavi Lavin Masamachle right afterward it says, well, Yebu Mamzer B'Kal Hashem. So Alma Mahani Havi Mamzer. The fact that it's written next to the pasuk that says a Mamzer shouldn't come to Kal Hashem, obviously this pasuk is talking about a Mamzer. And therefore, according to this opinion of Rabbi Kiva, he holds that this pasuk is talking about of a Nusas Aviv, which is only a Lav. And therefore the din is that even when it comes to a Lav, the child will be a Mamzer. So now the Gemara asks, how will Rabbi Simoy? Now Rabbi Simoy is actually more strict than even Rabbi Akiva. The Mar B'Shar Chayvi Lavin de Lav Desheir. He learns out other Lavin from the Lav of Lav Desheir. Says Rashi, Min Hakol Oisa Rabbi Akiva Mamzerim. He actually learning up Rabbi Akiva. His opinion is that what Rabbi Akiva holds is even more strict. Chutz me'almana kohen gadol shasa chalolin. He says when it comes to an almana who has relations with an almana, that child will be a chol, will not be a mamzer. But he makes that as an exception. According to almana, a kohen gadol to an almana, alma fil chavi lavin shlomach maskurva marbe. He's coming to include even relationships which are not because of your proximity in relationship to that other person. Can go machzikru shasai. If let's say you divorce a woman and she married another man, and then she got divorced from him, or let's say her husband died, you're not allowed to remarry her. That's machzikru shasai. Now, in that situation, he would also say if you would marry your machzikru shasai, even though it's not has nothing to do with a relative, because she's not related to you. She was your wife, you divorced her, and then she married someone else, and you want to remarry her, you can't. So according to him, he actually would say that the child would be a mamzer. Could go Nesin Yisrael, someone from the Gevonim who married Yisrael, the Karmablo Tischasim Bum. The pasuk says Loy Tischasim Bum, that you're not allowed to have chasnus with them. So according to him, this child would be a mamzer as well. This is TB4. Rav Simoy Liber Rikiva Marba Mamzer Mesher Chavi Lavin the Lav Desher. Elohim Chavi Lavin the Lav Desher. This is only Rashi, which is hard. You have to know this Rashi. And again, if we're talking about even Max Grishaso, or even someone who would marry a Nasin to a Yisrael, that also is a Lav, even though there's no Korvus over there. They're not related. Nonetheless, according to him, the children would still be Mamzerim. And Rabbi Yishaviv, the Marba Fil Chavi Aseh. According to Rabbi Yishaviv, he even includes Chavi Aseh. What is that? So, for example, you're allowed to marry a Mitzri after the third generation, or an Edoimi, but before those 3 generations, you cannot. So it's inferred that only Dor Shlishi Avolahem, on the 3rd generation, you could marry into them. However, not the 2nd. So therefore, it's the 2nd generation that's considered to be a mitzvah saseh. So if you would marry a Mitzri on 2nd generation, so that would be an Isser Chavi Aseh, that even according to him, he would say the product would be a mamzer, which is obviously the most strict. So Nafkahu Mivoloi. So he learns it out from the extra Vav. Shimon Hatimoini. Now, according to the opinion of Shimon Hatimoini in our Mishnah, which we said the halachas like him, it's totally on whether the relationship is chayvi krisos. Sabla kurabanan. They'll actually hold that this whole pasuk has nothing to do with Nusas Aviv, because then it would be a question, because l'chayra this pasuk is talking about the child being mamzer, so he'll have to hold like the Rabbanan. The Amri b'shemeres yavam shel aviv b'kas medaber. We're talking about one who takes the shemeres yavam of the father, the habi l'chavi krisos. So the person who would take his uncle's wife, which is this woman who's a shemer yavam, because your father is the one who's supposed to marry her because your father's brother died, so you're not allowed to take that woman. Now, if you do that, that's a chavi krisos. So only when it comes to chavi krisos, the pasuk is telling us that child's a mamzer, not by chavi lavin. He has no choice, but he'll have to learn that that's what the pasuk is talking about, according to the shita of the Rabbanan, not like the Rabbi Yehuda. He'll hold it as it's not a nusas aviv, but rather it's a shemer yavam. So Rabbi Yeshua lechtav rachman yigala. So according to the opinion of Rabbi Yeshua, who says that's Chavi Misas based in. So Lichtav Rachamanu Yigala, Lo Yikach Lamuli. Why does it say the words Lo Yikach? So El Lolav Hachikamer must be coming to tell you this. Lo Yikach Ad Lo Yigala Habi Mamzer. According to him, says Rashi, Hainu Eishas Av Hakasav Bein Lo Yikach lo yigala. In either situation, this child is going to be a mamzer. Tvei will have a mamzer, but more than that, the child will not be a mamzer. Amar Bai, hakol moedim. Now, even though you have the most stringent opinion, that maybe even by Chabi Asay, but hakol moedim babal nida. If a person is married to a woman and she happens to be a nida, and you had tashrish there, and you had a child at that time. Now Rashi says, even though that's actually an Isser Kares to have relations with your wife while she's a Nida, the child will not be a mamzer, as well as we continue to Mem Testament Beis, V'al Hasota, Shein Havalad Mamzer. A person whose wife was Mazana, so he said that she's usher to the husband. And because of that, you would think that if they would actually have relations, that the din is that the child would be a mamzer. The answer is no. So this is question 13. Be'elu bios iser diraisel kol yama ein avlad mamzer nida sota. So nida the hotasiba kedushin. The reason why, first of all, is because nida it's kedushin's typhus, which means that if you would marry a woman with like chupas nida, the kedushin is chal. Shenemar tihin nidasa olav. Afil b'shas nidasa tasiba kedushin. Even while she's a nida, the kedushin is typhus. Saita nami the hotasiba kedushin. When it comes to a sota, also the kedushin is typhus. Okay, stop here for a second. Look at Rashi. B'kol shekein le'idach Rabbi Akiva bar plukta d'shimon hatimoini loy havi mamzer mishum the saita lamechavi l'lavin d'sherhi. So even if you would say, well, maybe it's when it comes to it's a chavi lav, but when it comes to the opinion of Shimon HaTimoini, perhaps it's only when it comes to being a share. It's a relative, it's a relationship. But when it comes to a need on the sota, it's not because there's no isser because of the close proximity of your relationship to that person. Says Rashi, Latasba Kedushin, Laisha, the Afal Acher Shazinsa, Lo Pokumine Kedusheha Harishainim. That even after she was Mazana, the Kedushin is not going to be removed. Okay. Now the Gemara says like this: Tana mehachi hakol moedim b'bal nida b'al saita, and then he adds v'al shomeres yavam, as one that comes to a shomeres yavam shein havlad mamzer. What's a shomeres yavam? Says Rashi, lechem and a shuk b'loy chalitza shein havlad mamzer. If a person would marry a woman who was a shomeres yavam, which she was really supposed to be having yibam or chalitza, but instead someone else married her. Or had relations with her, so in that situation, we're going to say that that child is not going to be a mamzer. And he says, "V'taima mishum de kedushin toisenba," because the kedushin is typhus. What does that mean? So says Rashi, "Lo siya bas havoyahi v'hachi kamer lo siya eishes hameis lo tiskadish eishes hameis b'kedushin leish zar al b'kedushin tasiva." It's saying that she should not do kedushin to another person. Why does it say it that way? It's mashma that it actually is chal. Kedushin is actually typhus by Shemer Shavam. And the reason why Shemer Shavam wasn't mentioned by both opinions is because it's a suffix we hold like Rav or Shmuel. What is that? It says Rashi, Ikarav, as it says later on, Menayin she'en kedushin tyson b'yavama. How do we know that you cannot kedushin is not typhus by Yevamot? So according to Rav, if you would marry a Shemesh Yavam, or let's say you would have a relation with a Shemesh Yavam, that child is going to be a mamzer because it's not, if you would do kedushin with her, it's not going to be chal. However, Shmuel says, based on Ba'aniyosenu, Ba'aniyoistaitenu, Sricha get, that actually based on our lack of knowledge, we're going to require a get to be given. The Mesavkalan, because he's in doubt, Ilahachihu da'asa, the Kamar Rab, Odilmo Ukma Balav Asa, the Kedushin Tasiba, Midafik Lav Dide Beloshin Havaya. So he's actually not sure if, let's say, he would do Kedushin with a Shemer Shavim, that maybe Mesafik, we are going to require him to give a get because it possibly is a Kedushin. And therefore, because of that, it's not so clear whether or not Shemer Shavim should be included over here. If we hold like Rav or like Shmuel, whether or not the Kedushin's typhus is the underlying question. Amar Shimon ben Azai. So Tani Shimon Manazi Erma Matzasim Megillas Yochsin. We said B'Yerushalayim that there was this book about Ish Ploini Mams Meishas Ish, that this person who was a product of Meishas Ish was a mamzer. B'Kasaba also it said Mishnas Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. When it comes to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, Kavanoki, is very clear and clean and precise, and because of that, we will generally paskin like him. Says Rashi. Kav Mida Katana. He's not mentioned in so many places, but Vanaki, wherever his name is mentioned, we will hold like him. And then we have a fascinating thing that's written. The Koseba, Menashe harg es Yeshaya. It says that Menashe, who was this evil king, he killed the prophet Yeshaya. Why did he do this? What was his intentions? So Omer Rava, Meidan Daine Vikatli, he actually judged him and had him killed. So actually in his mind, Menashe's warped mind, he felt that he was justified in killing Yeshaya for saying verses that he thought were incorrect. Armale Moshe Rabba Chaimer, your Rebbe Moshe Rabbeinu the Torah says, Kil Yereni Hodam Achai, that you cannot see Hashem and live. Yat Amrat, and you said the Eras Hashem, Yoshev Al Kisei Ramani saw that you could see Hashem. So it's not true. Moshe Rab, that's question number one. Moshe Rabba Chaimer, Mika Hashem Elokeinu, who's like Hashem, Bechol Kareinu Elav, whenever we call out to him. Now over here, you're implying that you can just call out to him and he will be found only sometimes. You can call out to him during the time when he's found, which is mashma. There's sometimes when he's not easily found. But Moshe said, "The whole karenu elav." Anytime you call out, will always be available. Question number 3: Moshe Rabba Chaimer es mismor yamecha mole, which means that your days are exact, and you cannot. Rashi says, "V'loy yoser." You can't have any extra days added on to your predetermined amount of years you're going to live. And you say you can add up to 15 years. So Yeshaya heard these questions. He knew the answers, but he didn't say them. He said, I know that whatever I say to this guy, he's not going to listen to me. He's not going to accept my words. And if we actually tell it to him, what will happen is Shavi Mazid. He's not going to accept it, and he's going to end up killing me on purpose. So instead, let him kill me. I know he's potentially going to kill me because he's the king, but let him kill me under the condition of him not being such a horrible human being, by him thinking that he's right. But once I explain to him the meaning behind these psukim, he's not going to be able to justify his actions, except for the fact that he's going to just do it on purpose. So better I shouldn't say anything. So what did he say? Omer Shem. So Yeshaya said God's name in Ibala Ba'arazah, and he got swallowed up in a cedar tree. So he was like protected in this hard cedar tree. Asul Arza. So they went to the tree, but Nasrua, and they started to cut it down. They started to chop at it. Himatala Hadipuma. When he got to the mouth of Yeshaya, Noch Nafshe, he died. He got hit by the axe right in the mouth, and that's how he died. Why? Why the mouth? Because Yeshaya said, among the impure lips I am sitting. Basically, he spoke not nicely about the nation. And once he spoke not nicely about the nation, at that moment, he's no longer going to be the leader. So what is the answer to these contradictions? So Ve'eras Hashem. So first of all, let's see question 14. How did Yeshaya die, and why did he die? So he says that Nasrua Lapume, that again he was hit by the mouth with this axe. Because he spoke that way, that was the reason why he was punished. Okay. All right. Okay. So, how do we answer these contradictory psukim? So, the pasuk says like this: So, ve'er as Hashem, that you can see Hashem or you can never see Hashem. K'lesanya kol nevim nistaklu bas bakalari she'enu me'ira. It's true. Yeshaya was able to see Hashem, but not in a very clear fashion. Moshe Rabbeinu nistakel b'aspaklavari ha'me'ira. However, Moshe Rabbeinu was able to see Hashem in a clearest way more than anyone else. Dir Hashem b'himatzo. What does it mean? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Habiyachid habatzibor. So if you're by yourself, sometimes it will work, sometimes it won't work. But when it's Tzibor, you'll always be answered. So b'yachid amos. So Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabba Boravua, El Aser Yomim Shebein Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippurim. So during the Ser Tshuva, those are the days that even a Yachid has the opportunity to be able to be answered, and Hashem's will be found. But at Tzibor, Hashem will always listen to the Tzibor. As Misbar Yemecha Malei Tanoihi. What does this mean? What can Hashem add on extra years or not? It's actually Machlokas Tanoim. The sign as Misbar Yemecha Malei, as we continue to Nun Amud Aleph. Elu Shnei Doidos. These are two generations. Zacha Mashlimin Loi. If there's Zaycha, then they will be able to basically have more. Lo Zacha Poichasin Lo. Divrei Bikiva. If not, then it'll be less. It says Rashi, Shnayim shepoiskin l'adam shas leidasai, referring to the years that were set aside to a person at the time of his birth. So zacha moisifin lo, v'amali lashin tosefesu. Sometimes it could be added if you're zaycha. If you're not zaycha, then not. That's Rabbi Kiva. V'chacham amrim zacha moisifin lo. You're right. If you're zaycha, then Hashem will add. However, loy zacha poichasin loy. If you're not zaycha, poichasin lo. So Amalo Rabbi Kiva Hariyo Oimer Bo Safti El Yamecha. Let me read this again. El Shnei Doros Zacha Mashlimin Lo Zacha Poichasin Lo. So either if you're Zaycha, you'll get be mashlim. You'll be able to live the amount of years, not extra years. You're just going to get that amount. However, if you don't do the right thing, you're going to be at less. Because the Chacham says no. Zacha Moisifin Lo. If you're Zaycha, Hashem will give you extra years. That they agree. So Amar Rabbi Kiva 1 second. How do you understand this pasuk, Rabbi Kiva? It says clearly that you're going to be added extra years. So it's very clear that it must be if you're Zaycha, it's not just your mashlim, Hashem's going to actually add years. So Amar Lahem Mishalo Hosifuloi. From your own he will add to you. Says Rashi, Ela Shemedchila Hayu Roitzim Lichleis Mishalo. That maybe it was lost at one point, and now those years will be added back. But in other words, you're supposed to live till 80. You did something wrong, so it went down to 65. But because you did tshuva, so it goes back to your original 80. But not that if you were guaranteed 80 years, that you'll somehow get more than that, according to this interpretation. Teda, and I'll prove this to you. How do you know? That's Shahari Navi Oimid. You have a Navi that's standing, and Rashi says, Umas Nave, he's giving Nevuah. In the days of Yeravam, says, Shanim Harbe Koidim, Hine Ben Noilad Lebeis David Yeshayahu. So it's just, we're going to read the Gemara in a second. Look at Rashi. He says that there will be a child that will be born in the house of David in Yeshayahu Shemo. So there's going to be a child, his name's going to be the great Yeshayahu. Rishas Chaliyoi Shel Chizkiah Adain Lo Noilad Menashe. Now, when Chizkiah was sick, Menashe wasn't born yet. Shimimenu Yatzi Yeshayahu, because from him Yeshayahu came forth. Havi Omer B'Shas Chaliyoi Gazel Livchois Mishanim. So look at, I'll see the Gemara. Hine ben Noilad Beis David Yeshayahu Shemo. So you're going to have a child Yeshayahu. Yadayin Lo Noilad Menashe. So how is it possible that Menashe is going to be the one that's going to come about and kill him? So he's going to end up maybe not having more years, having less years, right? He wasn't even around for that to happen. Rabbanan Miksim is it written Mechizkiah Lebeis David? Mechizkiah Lebeis David Ksiv. Mechizkiah Noilad Inish Achrina. Could have been from another person. Lav Dafka was Yeshaya going to be the product of this person. Ishto Shemesa Yevimto Shemesa V'Hu Amar Rav Yosef Kanshana Rabbi Mishnah She'enut Tzricha. This is a Mishnah She'enut Tzricha. Says Rashi, the Zil Kari Beirav Hu Olel B'Chayeha Shaloi Nesra Chayse El B'Chayeha. We all know this, that when it comes to the dinim of the sister, she's mutter once the other sister dies. So the Mishnah is really a Mishnah Shoit L'Chayra Shenut Tzricha. All right, Hanulacha Choylitz, Hanulacha Choylitz, Hanulacha Choylitz. We're now going to continue the fourth parak. Just see the first line. Rabbi Galil Omer Ein Get Acher Get. Rabbi Galil says there's no get after get. We'll discuss this. This was actually quoted before. Is there mimer after get? Is there etc.? We'll see that on tomorrow's daf. Okay, TA 2. These are the three things that Yeshayahu said when regarding to Moshe when Menashe killed him. That seemed to contradict the words of Moshe Rabbeinu. The Eretz Hashem, Eksiv Kilureni Hashem. He says you can see Hashem. I can see Hashem. Dir Hashem be matzo. Sometimes you can see Hashem. Sometimes Hashem will be found. Sometimes not. Dir Sifa al Yamecha Chamish Esrishana. And about adding extra years. And somehow I got that question right. That is a hard question because there's 3 answers to that. That's TA 2. Let's see. Question 3. Nope. TB 4. Rabbi Simoy, Rabbi Kiva. So we did that one already. Adka.